Hey, this is Elias Torres, co-founder and CTO of Drift. Did you know that Drift is part of the just 2% of VC-backed startups led by Latin American founders? Well, I am aiming to change that. I want to highlight stories of underrepresented leaders and help change the face of corporate America. Once a month, you'll hear inspiring stories from other underrepresented leaders as we work to build our own American dream. Hit the subscribe button to make sure you get the new episodes when they drop. In the meantime, follow me on Twitter @EliasT and subscribe to get quarterly updates at drift.com/American-Dream.
Tenemos aquí a Tatiana y tenemos aquí a Alexandra Paredes.
Hola.
Igual. Dime un poquito de ti también, y para que la gente te conozca, y dinos algo y empezamos a hablar un poquito del tema que tenemos hoy.
So my name is Ale Paredes. It's Alexandra, but everyone calls me Ale. I grew up in Venezuela. I studied computer science there, and 6 years ago I moved to the US. And now I'm in New York, working as a VP of Engineering at Code Climate, and also working with Tatiana and our team at Latinx in Tech to grow our Latinx in Tech community in New York City.
Yeah. Felicidades, congratulations, amazing. Tener, we have a woman engineer and a vice president of engineer of a tech company in New York City. Desde Venezuela, very, very proud of you. What about you, Tatiana?
Well, thank you so much for having Latinas in Tech here at Drift.
Yeah.
We're super excited for this opportunity and to talk to the audience too about something so important, which is being Latinx in tech. And just very briefly about me, born in New York, raised in Caracas, Venezuela.
Woo!
Believe it or not, Ale and I grew up like 10 minutes apart from each other.
Yeah. But we only
Se
met.
conocían, ¿no?
No.
Yeah.
But it was meant to be,
It was meant to be. We
We have
met
Ángela, colombiana. We have Gonzalo, venezolano. Aquí estamos todos los latinos aquí.
Yeah.
Woo!
Woo! And basically, I am a management consultant at a firm called Booz Hamilton, but my passion is really health tech and also working with Latinas in Tech as part of the board of the New York City chapter and building community. There's so much to do, and we're really excited to talk about that.
Yeah, no, we are definitely very passionate. I think a commitment that we made at Drift to use David and I, right, our heritage, our backgrounds, and to really help the Latino community, right, the Latinx community in tech, to be able to grow, promote it, right, and create opportunities for us to succeed in higher numbers than it is today. Today, we want to talk about 3 different things. We want to talk about things that the idea is we have gotten feedback and saying, like, what can we do to help our people, Latinx community in tech? And one of the things that everybody struggles with is the bias, the cultural bias in hiring, right? And so, like, what do you think? Who wants to tell me a story? Who wants to tell me what is the problem here, right?
I think there are many problems. I can speak from like my personal experience. I think one of the most challenging things for me moving from Venezuela to the US was realizing that as soon as I got into an interview and the recruiter realized that I was a woman and that English was not my first language, the tone of the call immediately changed. And it was like a great learning experience for me because it made me realize, like, I don't want to work on a company that, reacts this way, right? Like, if the recruiter is reacting this way, that means that the biases are like spread out across the company. But it's also like very hard to like experience that when you are like doing your best, you practice for these interviews, like you put so much effort, and some companies don't realize, like, hey, I am not doing my part in making the candidates feel comfortable or welcome. So yeah.
How do we fix that?
How do we fix that? I think
how do we help us that we're experiencing that maybe when we go into a meeting? What advice can we give people?
I think something particularly on my role right now that I have put a lot of effort in my team, and I'm very lucky that I have a team that is super receptive to this feedback and like wants to do better, is basically coaching everyone, right? Like, candidates come from very different backgrounds. They may feel comfortable or uncomfortable with certain behaviors, and we need to be aware of those behaviors and try to change them, right? Like, that's how kind of like how can you drive change. And it's easier when the change is coming from the top, because then the message is across the company that's normal, right?
You think it's easier?
I mean, it's definitely a lot of effort.
This is really hard. This is a problem that one unconscious bias training, 1 hour of training is not going to solve how people grow up and what prejudice they might have towards someone that is different than them.
Yeah, right? I think it's consistency. Something that I talk a lot and I'm like very conscious about. It's like the way I speak and the way I expect others to communicate. So I'm constantly like sending the same message. I am constantly providing that feedback. And even when we're in tech and, you know, engineering may feel like it doesn't require to talk a lot about feelings, or like just be mindful about the words I use. I try to bring a lot of humanity into like what we're doing, right? Because engineers, like building a thing is like full of humans. So being mindful of the words, the way you speak is pretty important.
Yeah, and you know, I agree with Ale. There's so many things when you talk about cultural and gender bias, and there's so many biases, right? I know we're talking about being Latinx in tech, but what about being LGBTQ, being, you know, being a woman, being African American, being, you know, having a disability? You know, we're kind of in this interesting role where we're championing not just for us, but so many different people who are not part of the majority, right? And so I always, my, you know, recommendation or suggestion to you is, you know, prepare yourself as much as you can, because nothing can take away from your strengths. If you have skills that are, you know, if you have data analytics, or if you're great at coding, or, you know, if you're an amazing designer, you're preparing yourself to be a professional. Nothing is going to take away from that, right? So you can go into that interview with confidence and say, I've done this, I've built that, look at my portfolio. That's how you counteract that, because there is a different expectation that we're not up to snuff. Yeah. But you're going to go out there and shine and be the best you can be by preparing yourself.
I'm so much better than being here by myself, you know, talking to the camera. So thank you for being here. I think that
thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, but it's I feel like one of the things that Latinas we share, right, is this immigrant journey, right? It might not be first generation, it might be second, but it's like we have that mentality that we expect hardship. Mm-hmm. We come here, I came here, I wasn't expecting, like, you know, they're going to welcome me. They're going to give me a master's program. They're going to have me an apartment and a house and a car. Here's your car keys. I didn't have anything. So when I came here, I expected nothing, right? And so I think that mentality, sometimes I call it the rebel, you know, nature in us, is what we have to lean on and keep fighting to overcome that stuff, right? Preparation, keep trying, don't give up. And I think that this is a very interesting time in America, because people are concerned, right? People are finally starting to bring those stats, those diversity stats into it. And those are not the solution, but that's a place where we can start, right? Yeah. If a company has a goal, then we work on those numbers, starts from the leadership, and then we can use that to our advantage to get a shot, to get our foot in the door, and prove to people that we can do the same as anybody else. But I think that another thing you just brought in is like a segue into the second one, which is, how do you break through? How about if you find a mentor?
Yeah.
What if you find a coach?
There is something that I quote from, I forget who, I'm sorry, but that basically says something like diversity is getting people into the dance, inviting people into the party, but like making people feel include and belong is making sure that everyone can dance. And I think definitely that's like, for me personally, that was one of the biggest challenges. Like, you know, I'm super grateful like on the current opportunity that I had. I joined Co-Climate as a senior software engineer, and I have been able to grow so much. And it's thanks to the support, right, of my manager, you know, helping me with coaching and all of these different things. But at the same time, it's hard to find mentors that are coming with the same background or with similar backgrounds. I can understand kind of like not only what I want to be as a, you know, technical engineering leader, but also other expectations of my life. Like, you know, I have family, and for Latino for the Latino community, it's pretty common that, you take care of your family, you support your mother, your brothers, and there are all of these other different expectations that some people that are like common leaders right now may not be aware of. Even the way I feel like the way that I speak as a leader is often very different to what is expected of leadership. So I think something that I learned is not to change myself because of like that expectation of what a successful leader is supposed to be, and be comfortable and helping others be comfortable with who I am. But it's like hard. It's a lot of work. And it's like a lot of emotional labor that you have to make to kind of like change other people's minds.
Yeah, I think it's a huge concern, right? I'm always like, how should I talk? How should I say? How should I present? Does my talk look like the one on the TED conference? And so like I hired a speaking coach, and David too said, you're not speaking the way you speak normally. Like we were preparing in the room, like just be normal, be yourself. We just have to be comfortable and be who we are and our culture. We were having a discussion whether we should have a Facebook Live in the room, or should we not be Latinos and be out, go walk around Drift and do the Facebook Live. And I was like, what's the only way we can be?
Yeah, ourselves. Yeah. But so going back to the whole mentor conversation, and one thing that I will distinguish is we've heard of mentors, and that's great. And there's also sponsors. Okay, so let's talk about that too, because as you're trying to advance your career, a mentor is someone that's guiding you, that's really providing a lot of career feedback and advice and saying, you should talk this way, or you should present things that way, right? Or your data analytics skills aren't great, maybe you should do some training. A sponsor is someone higher up within your organization that really has the authority to provide you opportunities where you can shine and where you can show your skill set. So, it depends on which company you're in. Some companies are very large, so it is hard to get those opportunities. But the mentors you can find pretty much anywhere. You can find mentors. If you're a member at Latinas in Tech, we have a mentorship program that we just began. It's very small. Or
hopefully it grows over the year.
Yeah, hopefully it grows. Or, if you're part of a professional membership association, whether it's like Women Who Code or something else, where you find like a like-minded individual who really takes upon his or herself to show you the ropes.
Right.
So, it's kind of like a friendship, right? You start this friendship with someone who's invested in you. And, I feel like mentorship opportunities sometimes flip, right? Like you may have someone who's more junior to you and you take them on and you show them the ropes, and then they're doing the same as they grow with someone younger than them. Right. So it's a nice little cycle that you see that builds on itself.
Fantastic, those two things, because I one is that there are plenty of mentors out there. There's plenty of people that want to help. Mm-hmm. We need to take action and go find them.
Yeah.
First of all, right? Second, if you cannot find mentors, go be a mentor. Mm-hmm. You can help someone. Yeah. There's something that you've done that somebody else has not yet done that needs help with, right? So be a mentor. But I like the clarification of something that you think that everybody knows what a sponsor is?
I don't think so.
No. It's not. It's I think it's something that is more recent, or at least we're defining it. It could be more tactical now, right? Which is a sponsor it doesn't even, if that person is Latinx, fantastic, right? Because understand, if that person is from your same country, if it immigrated, if it knows you, great. But if not, go find a sponsor.
Yeah.
Go someone that you can make an alliance with, right? That when you're in a meeting and you're presenting an idea and you feel like every time you present something, it gets shut down, you get somebody to say, help me, right? Help me present my idea, support my idea.
Or at least give you an opportunity.
I think
give you the opportunity.
That distinction between mentorship and sponsorship is critical, because anyone can be a sponsor. So allies to underrepresented communities, they can be sponsors too, right? They have the power to change, kind of like to create more equity for everyone.
In enterprise sales, there's this thing I'm bringing. So there's this thing called the economic buyer, right? And there's the champion. So those are terms that you use as you're navigating the sales process with the company. It says the champion has to have not just likes you and supports you, they have to have power.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And the authority. So I do think that we do have to get some tighter definition of sponsorship and saying, find someone that has some power.
Influence. Yeah.
Power
Resources.
is extremely important. Resources can make decisions, can be deciding on projects, on future initiatives, can put you there, can give you a shot at it, because that should be a strict definition, because you want to be able to find people like that help you. And it's an important thing that we got to use instead of trying to do it all by ourselves. Right. I just hear Latinx just say, like, I'll figure this out on my own.
Yeah.
I want to make the mistakes. And
it takes years.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
It takes too long, right? We got to use the network, right?
Yeah.
And we ourselves can be sponsors, right? If we're in a position of authority within our own companies, I'm very lucky because in my firm, we have career managers, and you're supposed to touch base with them once a month, and you talk about your goals, you talk about, what you're doing, your projects, and how you're doing, and where are the challenges. Not everybody has that.
Right.
And so it's like, find someone where you can really discuss, okay, these are some things that I'm stuck in. What are some suggestions?
I think that's very actionable. I think everybody should really pay attention to these things, right? That we go to companies and we're talking about the dance, being invited. We're asking about being able to dance, right? Feeling comfortable dancing. I'm not a good dancer, believe it or not. So it's a tough analogy for me. I don't want to be on the floor, but I wish. I think that what we're saying is that I see people, tech leavers. We join companies and then we end up leaving quietly because we don't feel included. We don't feel invited. And so we can't just be there. We worked so hard to get that job, to overcome that interview where nobody wanted to talk to us. The tone changed when they heard us, when they saw us, right? And now you're saying, we got the job, and then we leave.
Yeah.
Because we didn't dance, we didn't feel comfortable. And what we're saying here is you have to, in the end, if you're going to leave and then give me some feedback at the end that you left, why don't you start speaking right away?
Yeah.
It's like we need to have instructions. Go find a mentor in the organization. Go find a career manager. Go find a sponsor. Go look for those people. Ask people. And if somebody says no, then go to the next one and ask. And then you're going to find somebody that says, I'll help you out.
Yeah, I think that's where community and kind of like why I feel so strong in our Latinas intake comes in.
Are you jumping into the third question?
Sorry. Well, it's kind of overlapping.
Yes, it's overlapping.
Segue.
Good segue. It's so important because there are like many companies that are like figuring out how to make things work. They may be small startups. But then we have like all of these large groups like Latinas in Tech, Techeria, that can provide support, that can help you feel as you're like part of something bigger. And I think, everyone should join them. Everyone should be not only a passive member of the community, but an active member of the community. Right. Bring your questions, bring your ideas, bring your challenges, because that's how the community gets richer.
What we were planning to talk about was, sometimes I struggle, right? I have people says, help me do this. And I'm like, how do I help? If I go have coffee with someone and people ask me, give me the answers and solve all my problems. I need this job, or give me this. How do I get promoted? How do I raise money? And I'm like, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
And I think that what we were talking about or when we met first over Zoom, we said, it might not be possible to provide all the answers in one meeting in that moment in time. But belonging and being part of the community allows all of us
to connect
and to create those opportunities that sooner or later will help each other reach a new milestone, right? So that's the thinking about the communities. And you just made me think also, it's like, if we don't exist, these communities, we need companies to come to you and say, how can you help us? Can you give us 10 sponsors? Can you give us 10 mentors for this, people of color in our company that we don't have any? How do we help foster that? So I think that this is very important.
And we're seeing that change. I mean, we're seeing a lot of companies create employee resource groups or diversity initiatives. You didn't see that even a couple of years ago. So I think that firms and companies, orgs are really understanding how key it is to bring everyone to the table and have inclusivity, because You're building better products, you're providing better services, you're representing your customers, especially if you are competing on a global scale. That's going to give you the competitive edge.
Right.
Yeah.
What role can community play in dealing with bias?
That's a great question. I think one of the most important roles is bringing awareness. When companies reach out to us, we usually share stats, we share information, feedback that we hear from our own community, and we make all of this information available to them, which I think is great. I think another part where we can help a lot is kind of like expanding the candidate pool. So instead of like they going to like the same places where they source the candidates, now they have access to our community, and they can bring in all of these, amazing Latinos into our pipeline.
Yeah, and I would add, if you're a small firm, right, you have just X number of dollars for your HR budget, right? And so you're trying to fill, Y number of slots. And so you're really thinking about, how do I stretch my resources, right? So that's why a lot of firms go to the same places. But first, you have to, like she said, raise awareness, think about the issue, and understand that there's people with talent everywhere. Yeah. And you have to, like she said, diversify your pool, but also it has to be part of your culture in your firm, right? You have to understand that you're going to be working with people from all different walks of life. It has to be kind of embedded into that fabric of your culture.
I think I want to bring up so many things in my mind. We were talking about I think something that happens to Latinx a lot is that we feel we're not good enough, that we don't have the right skills, that we don't have the right accent, that we don't have the right power or the right network or something like that, right? So, and when I saw this question about what role can community play, the word that came to my mind when I heard community is the network. I, very fortunate, right? I'm in this tech world. I have companies like Sequoia. I have big law firms. I have investors. I know a lot of white co-founders of companies. Do you know what the network gives you? Do you know how many emails I get? My younger son, my younger daughter is graduating. This person is here. This VC from this firm said this. The lawyer, the client, the portfolio.
Yeah. You have access to all of these resources.
Right?
That are not outside.
They're not us.
They're not out. They're not outside in plain view.
In plain view.
It's like
and it's
insulated.
Happening. And so it's like, and do we have that? I feel, and the reason why I say I feel lesser is like, I feel like Latinos don't have that, right? We don't have that powerful network.
Yeah.
That is connected. But
I think
need to build. What?
I'm going to interrupt you a little bit. I think she wants to. We do have the power, and we do have the knowledge, and we have the masses. We're, how many Latinos are there in the United States? Like
in 2045, we won't be a numerical minority.
Right. It's about 70 million.
Yeah.
Right.
Give or take, yeah.
So we're not harnessing the power.
Right.
Yeah.
But
that's
the power of the community, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the community is the network. If we have one person in Latinas in tech that works at Google or that works at Drift or that works at Slack or Facebook or wherever, and that person is there and they need to hire people, right? That person comes and refers people from Latinas in tech. That's how you use the community.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just saying we got to leverage the network like people are already leveraging their networks.
Yeah.
And we just don't feel comfortable doing that. Right?
I think that's something that when I thought about Latinas in tech and I felt the need of having Latinas in tech, in part is because of what you just said. There is, for people that grew up here, especially, with a good economic background, they have a network that they have so much easy access to. And then we can build. We are right now in a privileged position, right? In our roles, we have all of this knowledge, all of this experience. We can all come together and leverage, create that network. right, for other Latinos. And
Let's
hopefully,
create that network then.
Yeah.
and hopefully, and that's why I think like being an active member of the community is important, because everyone has power, everyone has influence on their own lives. So if they bring it to a community, then we're stronger just by doing
Absolutely.
that.
And another thing, Angel asked another question, while we get in another right now, that said, how can we use metrics, right, to fight bias? And I think that's what I was trying to say earlier. That as companies feel more compelled to publish their stats, right, we can use those, right? If here we're saying at Drift, it's not just about we care about diversity, is that we have a number. We have a number of URM. We want to keep moving that percentage, and I don't like percentages. I like to convert percentages into absolute numbers. Instead of saying we want to move from 1.35, I want to move to 1.7. Just whatever the number is.
Yeah.
You say we need to hire 5 people this quarter, and then I just look at that number and I say, have we hired those 5 people?
Yeah.
Where are we? In 5, have we hired
that?
1, 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And so metrics is that is, we got to get companies, we got to get people to say, we have a goal, and then attach a KPI, a key performance indicator, attach a number to it, and then we can talk about it. How do we drive towards that number? That'll help us than just talking about it.
Yeah, and if you can't measure it, you can't solve it. It's going to be very amorphous, and so having metrics will help you get to that goal more quickly.
It says, I have noticed that there seems to be an unconscious bias conflict between U.S.-born, U.S.-raised Latinx and adult immigrant Latinx. How can we help bridge the gap between immigrants and first-generation Latinx in the industry?
Wow, amazing question.
Were you born here?
I was born here, but I was raised in Venezuela, so Spanish is my first language, believe it or not.
¿Hablas español?
Hablo español.
Claro, yo nací en Venezuela.
So do you think you see that? Is there some bias between, I'm first generation immigrant too, right? So it's like, what do you think?
I think there is some bias.
What's the bias? Say it. Just what is it?
I don't know how. I think like for example, there are cases where I have seen some people, they don't like to speak Spanish as much as they could, or they don't feel as comfortable bringing their whole self, which is not necessarily their fault, right? What else would you say?
So there's lots. Let's unpack
this. I think there is, yes. It's not just one thing.
It's not just one thing, because you're talking about, kids like me who were raised somewhere else and come here young enough to then grow up into the U.S. system. And so we're, U.S.-based Latinos, right? But you feel comfortable speaking English and kind of navigating in these worlds because you went to school here, right? You kind of grew up here.
You understand the system.
Exactly. You understand the system. But the people who come later in life, right, they've adopted their own system, and now they're trying to adapt to this. It's harder to change behaviors and change, you don't, and that would describe my mom, okay? My mom came, in the late 70s to study English, but then it was very different for her because she was used to everything, how, the social system was in Venezuela, which is very different from here. And it was very, very hard because we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have these social networks as we do now, right? So there's also that ageism and that age difference and generational difference.
But what is the conflict, you think? How can we help it?
I think part of the conflict is that being Latinx is one word that tries to sum like so many different like cultures, different ways of seeing life. And it's great that we, have found like this word in common, which is being Latinx. But at the same time, we all need to be mindful that, coming from Venezuela is extremely different than, I don't know, being from Puerto Rico, República Dominicana. And we need to be more open at accepting our own differences and like being able to like recognize them and celebrate them, which I think sometimes we try to like just be one community that is like we are all the same, and that's not true.
We may speak the same language, but culturally we are very different. And I think it's also how you navigate society, right? So like my mom's generation, they're very proud people. They were, trailblazers, first to go to school, and my mom was first to go to school in her family. And so coming here, I don't want help.
Right.
I'm going to do it by myself. And it's like, no, we're telling you that you need to connect with the community so that we can provide you the resources so you can get to your goals faster. That's how you're going to do it.
I was speaking with I think is a very powerful individual, and where I was sharing with this person about my background and my passion, and really, sometimes people are like, why are Asians or why not Indians and underrepresented minorities or people of color, right? And why they're not under that group? And it's really hard, right, with having a word and having a label. But one thing that this person brought up is that Latinx is actually a special culture, right? In that we're a culture that we're coming here and we're very adaptable, right? And we're integrating, we're much more open. And so I think in this same way, this conflict, I don't know if the conflict, right? It's like, I don't have like the specifics, but it's like, whatever bias we have, I think we need to be unified, right?
Yeah.
We need to be helping each other, and we should welcome all of our cultures. Like whenever I'm traveling anywhere in Latin America, I feel that I tweeted about this the other day. I said, like, I just feel so comfortable at home, even though I've been more time in the US than I have in Nicaragua, right? It's like, I feel great there, right? Yeah. And it doesn't matter. Sometimes I'm in Puerto Rico, sometimes in Santo Domingo, sometimes Argentina, Mexico, it's like,
you feel at home.
I feel at home, right? And so I think that if we're having those conflicts, we should express them, right? Or we should sometimes don't get frustrated about some of that bias, right?
Yeah.
And really focus on the goal, right? Which is the goal. We gotta help us create a network, a community, find the mentors, get access to overcome the bigger cultural bias that it is, that we don't have access to be at that dance, right?
Yeah. And we also have to stop being judgmental. I feel like that's also very generational. I think the younger generations, we put that away.
You were calling me viejo.
No.
No.
Wow.
No, not at all.
In a live webinar.
Live webinar. Me dijo diablo, viejo, everything.
That's not true.
No, not true. Okay. Another question from Angel, though. What is it? How do we deal with false allies? It's like, when they say they're helping, so was it Angel? Maybe not. I don't know. Oh, he put it there. So,
okay. Thank you for that great question.
That we have allies that want to help us, but they're false. How do we deal with that? Have you ever dealt with that? Tell me a story.
Well, what's interesting is that I read this wonderful article, and I forgot who the author was right now, but basically it talks about how a lot of companies have put in place chief diversity officers and all of these D&I efforts and metrics. But when it comes time to actually doing what they need to do, they don't. And so I feel like that's part of the bigger conversation is like, you're just doing this to make it look pretty for marketing purposes, but you're not really moving the needle. And so
I think that's like when as metrics come into play, like you can say you can hire, I don't know, this many, like move the needle and have more representation by this how much, but then what really matters is how long are these employees staying at your company? Mm-hmm. How much are they growing? Are they really having opportunities to make meaningful contributions, or you just have them there?
Entry-level positions.
How are they being paid? How, compensation wise, are you being fair to everyone?
Right.
So, and I think like, if there were more transparency about that, then you can really say like, okay, this company is putting their money where their mouth is, basically, right? Like you wanna make sure that you're accountable for the things that you're saying, not just like saying them and then it sounds pretty, everyone likes your, inspirational tweet, and then nothing really happens after that.
And time will tell. Time will tell. We will see who is really doing the work and who's not. because the people will leave. And sorry, I'm being realistic here, but go ahead.
No, I think like if we want to bring it back to the question though, luckily I don't think I have. Well, I don't know. I have to like think if I had a false ally, but I think like if you're in a kind of like a one-on-one relationship, I think at some points it will be good to deliver feedback, right? Like to come up to this person like, hey, you say you like to do this and this, but actually like when I asked you for help on this, you didn't come through. And what happened? I mean, you never know, right? Like this person, but helping start that conversation even when it's hard, I think is important.
Yeah. So I just met you today.
Yes.
We were having like a prep
okay, I'm
meeting,
in trouble.
And then you said, how are we going to fix cultural bias? And you're like, we're gonna create a matrix and we're gonna have scores.
I did say that.
And it's like in the process we'll sort everything out. By the end of the prep, you're like, let's just bring a sledgehammer and just break through the wall. And now you said, we were talking about false allies, and the first thing you come up with, let's talk about those chief diversity officers.
Well, no.
It's just like, you went there. No, but I think it's important, right?
I was talking about, so this article, and maybe we can share it later, was great because
we probably should share it.
We should share it because I think it has wide implications, right? I'm not saying that's every company. There's, some companies that have chief diversity officers that have done an amazing job in creating strategies and implementing the strategies, right? But we're starting now. So long-term longitudinal effects we'll get to see, right? But what I'm saying is that there's some that are using it and they're not using it completely. So it's kind of like structured to fail.
We have to have the false allies is important, right? It's like only a small percentage of companies will have a chief diversity officer, and sometimes it needs to pass the smell test, right? It's a problem. It's a serious problem when we have executive sponsors of ERGs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When we have
that are never available.
Tatiana goes,
They're never available.
And you're like, is that person in there? We have our ERG for Latinx at Drift. It's called Cambio, and they asked me to be the executive sponsor. Right, I have to be available. When in other companies they don't even have an executive in the leadership.
They don't have buy-in. Yeah.
But I'm saying they don't even have buy-in, but they don't have even a person that understands that group.
Yeah.
And it's like I've seen it in many large companies, right? So are those real allies or false allies, right? Do they really mean what they said? I mean, sometimes I have people supporting, and some people say like, do we stop hiring white people at this company? That's like a serious statement, right?
Yeah.
So are they allies or not? I think that's what the question was trying to get to.
Right. Yeah. And I think you just have to make people accountable. If you say, you promised this, and here's your employee, and they worked really hard to, complete the project or get X number of clients, and you didn't come through, that's going to show.
Yeah, we have a great, how do you handle working in a culture that fosters people with the bias? Those people who have no idea what our stories are, but they feel entitled to judge us. How do you deal with being so different from those above you?
Wow. I guess, I'm not in an environment like that right now, but I think part of making sure people understand your story is you talking about your story, right? You sharing your background and you feeling comfortable with who you are, which is not an easy task. It sounds easy, but it's actually not. And then finding allies at work, creating those connections. It starts small, right? You create a couple of friends and that keeps growing, and then soon enough you have a support network at your work. There are places that are toxic enough where maybe you shouldn't be in those places, and then you can leverage communities like Latinx in Tech or Techeria to find other opportunities, right? Like that's the power of a network, like being able to say, I need help right now, or where can I go next to move forward.
Or go where the companies that want to hire
Yes.
that we are inviting, Go Climate Drift, we're inviting you in this community to come and join us, where we want to guarantee you an invitation. We want to invite you to join companies like that to avoid that, right? Go where we want it. Let's go there first, right? And then we'll figure out how to do that, tell your story. And then also we have to focus on our results, right? Let's deliver. Right. Let's get clarity on what is our mission. What do they hire us for? What do they need us to? What is the job to be done? And then smash those goals. Right?
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I stole it from you.
No, I agree with what you're just saying.
She's like,
I'm interrupting you so much.
I know, you're doing great.
But what I was going to say is, I know Latinos, we just talked some. What I was going to say is, some people are gonna judge you no matter what. Even if you share your story, they have no way to understand. They have no way to even fathom what you went through, right? And so it's kind of a deer in the headlights. So I think how we counteract that is exactly what you said. You just got to be excellent, hit it out of the park. People are going to be like, wow, right? Because there's some people judge you and they underestimate what you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you go in there into that client meeting and you provide 3 pieces of advice that nobody could have even analyzed, and everyone's like, oh, wow, that's right, we didn't think about this or that, they're going to see you in a different light.
I think one of the areas, I was going to make a joke, but no, I'm not. I think, for example, what makes us different sometimes, right, is that privilege is something that hurts us, right, because we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't grow up with it in the way that people that were born here, that are white, that have grown with it. It is the truth, and this is what needs to be said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is that when we're working at the companies, right, it's like, what is different about us? I think that the fact that the lack of privilege that we have is an advantage. I see this. I sometimes associate the privilege with a negative connotation I have, which is you were born and you expected to get something. You didn't expect to work harder, right? You thought you were going to get a promotion in 3 months, I think that if we come and we show, just like we did it in those jobs of picking the fruit and making the construction and running the restaurants and cleaning the dishes and cleaning the offices, that same energy, the same passion that we have, if we bring that to the tech world, and people will see, oh, she works way harder, gets the job done, cares more about it, and is not complaining. We should use the lack of privilege as an advantage.
I mean,
right?
I think definitely that lack of privilege helps you grow another skill, which is extremely valuable, which is being resourceful.
Scrappy, we call it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like I oftentimes, like, I know, I don't really know how to do this, or I don't have access to this, but then my mind immediately goes to like, okay, I don't have the access to this right now, but I'm gonna get it. And that, I think, like, having that drive is definitely something that comes from the fact that you don't have that privilege, right? Like, you don't take things for granted.
We make each other as Latinos with the memes, with the, this is what it looks like in Cuba, this is what it looks like in Venezuela and stuff like that. But that is actually part of our secret sauce, right? Yeah. Those things makes us different. We bring that because we're competing globally. We're competing with China. We're competing with Europe. We're competing with India, right? And it's like, we have to use, and bringing that to the United States is something that will help the United States be more successful.
And I'll add one more quick thing there. You're right. Humble, humility, being scrappy. I think that, we're no strangers to hard work.
Right. What does it look like in 10, 20 years, Latinx?
Wow.
Did we bridge the inequality, the gap between Latinx and traditional wealth?
I'm excited. I think that estamos rompiendo barreras. I have to say.
The sledgehammer, right?
The sledgehammer. Bring out the sledgehammer.
Forget the matrix.
Yeah,
no metrics.
Yeah, no matrices, please. And we're building this foundation where other people can, build off from. And I think that it's going to be great. We have to understand our own greatness and power. And, we got to go out there and vote. We have to go out there and vote with our money as well. Think about what companies are doing great work. Vote with that money too.
Would you have the power with your feet where you go?
Yeah.
Right.
Where you go, what you use, what you eat, where you buy from. So I think I'm very hopeful, and I think it's going to be great. And, it's up to you.
Yeah.
It's going to be better.
I think like in 10, 20 years, if we're having this conversation right now, and the more we talk about this in 20, 20 years, we will have different challenges, but hopefully we have other kinds of challenges, It's like we are in the door, we are dancing, and I don't know, maybe we want to get better at dancing, you know what I mean?
Thank you for the feedback. I will sign up for it.
So I really think, but it's up to all of us, right? It's not gonna happen just like magically. We need to take ownership of our own life, careers, and be aware. I think being aware is very important.
Thanks for listening to The American Dream. Let me know what you thought of this episode by tweeting me at EliasT. Be sure to hit subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Por favor. If you're looking for more leadership insights and stories like the ones you just heard, sign up for my series, The American Dream, at drift.com/American-Dream. Every quarter, you'll learn how Drift is progressing towards our mission of remaking the face of corporate America. And you will get insights from amazing Latin American and entrepreneurs of color, and leaders like Manny Medina of Outreach, Maria Martinez of Cisco, and many others, along with curated content, news, events, and ideas delivered straight to your inbox. Muchas gracias, and don't forget to sign up.